What can this week's latest cybersecurity news teach your board and C-suite about fortifying and needing to fortify your organization's defenses? Welcome to CyberBoardCast Episode 301. I'm Andrzej Setnarski for CyberNation Central, and today we cover the top 5 board and C-suite impacting cybersecurity news stories from the past week. Let's dive right in because this week was very impactful. So was today, by the way. First, Trump campaign says it was hacked. Wall Street Journal. The impact, kind of obvious, but this breach highlights the ongoing threat to national security for sure, and corporate data from foreign actors. Boards must therefore realize that such attacks can easily target their own organizations, right? If the Trump organization cannot be breach-free, then there's something to be said for an average company and even a Fortune 50 company, leading to therefore severe data breaches and reputational damage from there if you don't prevent it to begin with. And so therefore, from an action perspective, your board really should ensure robust protection of sensitive data, particularly against state-sponsored attacks here, right? Because an average nation-state leveled attack costs organizations an average of $1.6 million. And the bigger you are, the bigger that ticket size is. And so the CISO must prioritize securing all communication channels and digital assets, especially during critical periods like elections where, right, nation states are attacking not just the Trump organization, but also organizations that may be supporting his campaign, or organizations that are involved in elections, or organizations that have a national security impact, or that are part of the US critical infrastructure, or your own country's critical infrastructure. So just because this is the Trump organization and Trump campaign doesn't mean that your organization is immune. Your risk committee, on the other hand, should regularly assess and update, actually, strategies to counter nation-state threats, with legal counsel ensuring compliance with relevant laws. We've covered the geopolitical side of cybersecurity and board and C-suite cyber governance from that perspective in prior episodes, so make sure to spend the month of August just kind of perusing some of those episodes because there's a lot of knowledge that your board and C-suite and your individual fiduciaries need to be deploying from there. Second piece of news, CrowdStrike to Delta. Stop pointing the finger at us. Wall Street Journal reporting. The impact here, well, the public dispute between CrowdStrike and Delta underscores the importance of clear vendor risk management and legal strategies. Right? Without these, organizations can suffer not only severe, obviously, incident sort of fallout, but also financial and reputational harm when a breach occurs. Not to mention the years of cleanup that's taking you away from what you should be doing to begin with, which is driving value for your stakeholders, right? Think about it. Delta's going to be paying for this mistake for years to come. Your action, therefore, well, your board must mandate a review of vendor contracts to ensure clear liability terms, right? Because right now we're in a point the finger battle between CrowdStrike and Delta, whereas this should be a clean, here's what you were supposed to do, here's what we were supposed to do, here's where you went wrong, so on and so forth. And so legal counsel should collaborate with the CISO, and for sure the cyber committee on your board, and ideally you have a cyber committee, but if you don't, then the audit committee or your risk committee, to address potential vulnerabilities in vendor relationships. That's so crucial, right? In fact, if you go back to one of our previous episodes where we talk about specifically third parties and vendor management, you'll see just how badly vendor mismanagement from a cyber perspective affects your organization's breach potential. And so the CEO here should strengthen these relationships while ensuring vendors are held accountable. This is so critical, so make sure to spend your next board meeting with at least a certain amount of time devoted to this agenda item. Critical. Third piece of news from this week, big one. Hackers leak, and this is today, hackers leak 2.7 billion data records with social security numbers, reported by BleepingComputer. The impact here, well, this is a massive data breach of US, Canadian, and UK citizens alongside their social security numbers. underscoring the critical need for boards to prioritize data protection. The release of social security numbers could lead to identifying, to identity theft, right? Financial loss, and irreparable harm to those affected. Your action, therefore, your board must oversee the implementation of stringent data security measures, including encryption and access controls, right? This is not just the CISO's job. The CISO should provide quarterly reports on data protection while the audit committee ensures these are the top priorities, but your board and C-suite each have a role, not just as a group, but individually as roles, right? So your board chair versus CFO, etc. Crisis management exercises should also be led by the CEO to prepare for potential breaches. The fourth piece of news is an interesting one. Enslaved in Asia and forced to scam strangers online. Wall Street Journal reporting. The impact here is monumental, and you may not even have done the analysis at your board and C-suite level of just how monumentally this is affecting you. So listen up. This article reveals the human cost of cybercrime, stressing the ethical responsibilities of boards in managing global operations for sure. Ignoring such issues obviously could result in public backlash and damage to the corporate brand to the extent that your employees in some way, shape, or form get entangled in this. But this is even more impactful from the perspective of countries, more nefarious, right? Sort of actors, if you will. Maybe not even countries, right? Myanmar and Cambodia are implicated here, but obviously the hacking groups in those countries are force recruiting cyber attackers against you. So this is like, right, I'm not going to liken it to something else. Let's just tackle this head on. This is forced criminal activity, and it's growing. So remember how 2 episodes ago, we talked about cybercrime rising at 15% per year versus cybersecurity is rising at 9.7. This is one of those things that tells you BS. Cybercrime is growing much faster, and we're barely catching up to understanding how fast it is really growing. And so from an action perspective, your board should really expand its focus to include this kind of analysis, not just the ethical oversight in supply chain and vendor management, ensuring all partners adhere to ethical labor practices that essentially not just prevent but foresee any of your labor being roped into these kinds of illegal practices, but making sure that you are coming up with a strategy for how to battle this kind of rapidly advancing cyber criminal activity. Make sure this is on your board agenda and your HR committee is thinking about these issues. So is your CISO, right? Because this engages everybody from the CEO to the board chair to the audit committee chair to your CLO, chief risk officer, etc. And the compliance committee should verify that global operations are not just free from human rights violations that you may not be aware of, right? With the CEO advocating for ethical standards across the organization. But as I mentioned, every executive needs to be involved in the strategy that actually prevents you from being the sitting duck that gets taken by this kind of a cyber criminal activity ring. And our fifth piece of news today is more out of the healthcare space. Health and Human Services, HHS, settles HIPAA right of access case with EMS company. This is Health Tech Security reporting. And the impact here is, well, the settlement underscores the importance of regulatory compliance, particularly in healthcare here, but period. Failure to adhere to HIPAA standards and other regulatory standards these days can lead to significant fines and loss of patient trust in the case of this case, but just overall stakeholder trust in general. So you want to tackle this head on. And so your board must ensure the organization complies fully with whatever regulations you're subject to, in this case, healthcare regulations like HIPAA. The compliance committee should regularly review these policies, while the CIO and legal counsel ensure data access practices are transparent, compliant, and secure. Make sure to address these issues at the board and C-suite-wide level to enhance your organization's cybersecurity posture and resilience. And not just posture and resilience, but really with a focus on breach deterrence. Because if you do not prevent a breach, you will be inheriting that problem for years to come. Okay, so the focus here is building a breach preventative blueprint to begin with. Consult cybernationcentral.com to learn more about what this means. Assuming your CISO can do it all, will get your organization breached. So avoid this mindset. Now, we return with the CyberBoardCast September 2nd, providing you over the next couple of weeks an opportunity to reflect on the critical insights we've covered in these last 301 episodes. Catch up on any episodes you may have missed and deepen your understanding of the strategies your board and C-suite should be implementing. When we return, we'll dive deep into advanced cyber roles and responsibilities for board directors and C-suite executives, continuing to tackle each role in your C-suite and board and the cyber roles and responsibilities that, if you follow our advice, will help you lead cybersecurity at a time when the continued fallout from the CrowdStrike-caused global IT outage, the recent breach of the Trump campaign, and the exposure of 2.7 billion data records, including social security numbers, have made cybersecurity the top priority for every organization and executive. So to keep your shareholders, insurers, regulators, and employees reassured that your board and C-suite are ready to lead and are in fact leading cybersecurity, apply for and maintain the Certified Cyber Fiduciary CCF certification by CyberNation Central. Schedule your consultation at cybernationcentral.com now. Don't wait, because hackers clearly are not. Just ask the Trump campaign and the 2.7 billion records that were just breached. Until next time, stay vigilant, proactive, and reach out through any means to us if you have any questions. See you soon.